Hi guys, so this will be the second video that I've made so far. Hoping to do a series, so I'll keep you updated on that. But yeah, happy to have gotten the intro out of the way. I'm Dan, and I'm autistic. I also have comorbid anxiety and major depression. And I just thought that I'd make a couple of videos just in case anybody fancied giving them a watch. It might help you out, might help someone you know out. I've found that more often than not when I reach out to people, they're only happy to help me out and also share their story. And I think by sharing mine, you might get something from it, and that's what I'm aiming for. I'm really hoping that someone resonates with it and hopefully it helps them, not end their own life. That's a big thing that I want to touch on, and I'll touch on it through every single one of my videos. Is just trying to prevent people from feeling that they've no one to talk to. And believe me, I've been there. That's what made me more confident to make videos like this. Like, there's not a hope in hell I would have been sat in front of you like this. Don't mind my hands, by the way. That's just to get me comfortable. Um, but yeah, there's not a hope in hell I would have made a video like this before. But having had my own attempt, I know YouTube are big on blocking that S word out, but you all know what I mean. But yeah, having attempted to end my life, it actually made me think I'm not going to let these things bother me. Little things that will bother you in life. I was only chatting about another YouTuber today. Um, it's someone that was very nice to me. Mountain to Climb podcast. I just thought I'd give him a mention because what a lovely fella. He's subscribed to my channel now. Big shout out to him. Um, he's got a good bit more followers than me, and I'm really happy that people like him are out there. Because sharing their story, it's huge, and it helps people like myself be more confident. Um, and I was also telling them I have autism, and that's what this video is about. This is exactly what I want to talk about today. And boy, is there a lot to discuss. So before I end up rambling for any longer in the video, let's get into it. So I was thinking, would I describe or read out the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the classification of what they say about autism spectrum disorder, which is what I have. But then I was thinking, you could look at any video and find that. You know what I mean? Like, you can find the scientific layout, and I just thought to myself, that's not very authentic. But just to touch on it briefly, it's a neurological disorder that impairs your social interactions, your development, the way you learn, um, and then there's a whole load of misinformation around that. So some of it I think is true for sure. Like, social interactions for me were so challenging, like so difficult. And that's what I'd be coming at today with this. I'd just be coming at it from my perspective. Um, and I'd be giving my own thoughts on it, of just how I found it, what's related to me. What I find is misinformation, which, believe me, there's a lot. Um, so I was very anxious from a young age. I grew up in a household where my dad was away for a lot of my young childhood. Me and my brother were always delighted when he'd come back home. He'd always bring us stuff back from the country he was in, but there was a whole load of shit going on in the background. Um, he was cheating on our mum, unfortunately. Obviously, we didn't know at this age, but I remember him being away all the time. And then one particular thing that I remember early on in childhood was getting held back in school, held back another year, and then having our Christmas carol service. Me and my brother would have been in junior school at this time. So in Ireland, you've got primary school and then secondary school. So you go to primary school up until 12, start when you're about 4, but I got held back and had to start again at 5. And so yeah, we were having our end of the year Christmas carol, and we were like to our mum, "Oh, is Dad gonna be there?" because we were really wanting him to be there. And she said, obviously trying to keep us calm and knowing he wouldn't. Oh yeah, yeah, he might be there. Yeah, we didn't see him, so thought, oh, that's a shitty feeling. Like we were really hoping he'd be there, so we were so disappointed, and that was my first real disappointment. But then we went home, and it was around Christmas time, so you're there hoping the whole family will be together. We see Dad, and we're obviously excited. A 6 and a 4-year-old. I think I would have been 6 at that time. Um, so we're getting really excited. Like, oh, Daddy's home, brilliant, and we're there thinking, great, he is here. And then our mum's not very happy, and we're there thinking, oh, what's going on here? And obviously, a lot of stuff had been going on in the background. So our mum gets angry at him and shouts at him because of what he's been getting up to behind her back, and obviously leaving her with me and my brother, which wasn't very fair on her. So they started arguing and fighting in front of us. That was the first, real experience of intense anxiety and fear, because you've got the primitive amygdala where you fight or flight, but then you've got freeze and appease. So I think the last two are quite childlike. So when you're young, you can't fight because you're so small. Like, you're not going to take on two adults. You can't run because you're at home and they're in the way of the door, so they're kicking and screaming. And so it's terrifying. So what we ended up doing was just freezing. And then you assume you're in the wrong, so you try to appease, But I just remember my dad belting one of the doors, like kicking it, putting a crack in it. Every time I looked at that, it's going to sound very over the top, I know, but every so often, like when I got older, I just looked at it and was like, oh, shit, that's a reminder of when he first left. Isn't that nice? And it gives you a really shitty feeling, when you're not in a good headspace or whatever. But yeah, it was traumatic. He kicked the door and he stormed out. Obviously, me and my brother are in the room crying, not knowing what to do. That Christmas was miserable. And from there, like, I kind of just noticed my behaviour getting worse. Like, I was more withdrawn. And then at 7, so about a year or so later, that's when I was diagnosed. My mum brought me to someone, and went to a couple of people, and they said I was very withdrawn. I wasn't socialising like all the other kids were. I was playing on my own a lot, so that's a key sign. A child that's withdrawn, who's not really picking up on the social norms. You could see it from quite a young age. And then I was anxious as hell. Like, I was such an anxious kid. Like, more so than you normally would be. Like, as a teenager, it's very normal to be anxious about what you're going to wear or who you're going to impress, or all these kinds of things, oh, you're going to impress a girl you like, and are you going to look, if you look stupid in front of her, you're obviously thinking to yourself, oh shit, did I just miss my opportunity there? That's not what I felt. I felt like the world was going to end. Like what happens to me when I die, from a very young age. And that was very unusual now I think about it, but it was normal for me back then. I used to find it so difficult to socialise with other kids. That was incredibly hard. A lot of times I didn't want to because it was just so loud and noisy and people were running around all the time, and hated people touching off me. That was something like that was it's bad to say it now because it actually ruled my life when I was in primary school, but if someone bumped into me, or even say like, shake a table that you're sitting at, like that, just, I don't know if you heard that, but if someone bumped the table and it bumped into me, I would have to tip that person. And I know that might sound a little bit small, but it would drive me insane if I didn't tip them. So I go up, tap on the shoulder, bump into them, even like a little nudge, and I had to do it. It was a compulsion, and if I didn't do it, I'd get very distressed. Like that. Talking about that now, it's like a distant memory, but it was everything. Like, it ruled me. And then people obviously picked up on that and realised, oh yeah, tip him, run away, that'll really annoy him, and it's hilarious. We'll all get a good laugh out of that. So that's what a lot of people did. And then if I caught them, I got very angry with them because they were trying to annoy me. So that led to a lot of conflict and a lot of being called out of class and told like, oh, you can't be doing this, or what's wrong with you, you should know better. And I said that in the last video I made, but that really pissed me off. You should know better. You're kind of there thinking, why are they annoying me in the first place? Now, sometimes, like if you're nudging into a table and you bump into me, you can't really help that. Sometimes you don't even realise what you've done, or your bag maybe brushes off me, but I would just feel so agitated and I needed to tip you and to get you back if you want. Um, it was so compulsive. And like that, I didn't pick up on a lot of social norms, so I wasn't really into girls at a young age like other lads were. And a lot of things I just would look at and observe and think, am I expected to behave like this? And I was quite uncomfortable around people. But one thing I did have was sports, so like playing rugby from a very young age. Started that when I was 7, and psychiatrists literally told my mum, they told me as well, oh, that's too much stimulation for him, he won't like that. And they'd say it to me, or they'd say it to my mum in front of me, and that's quite patronising, when you hear people saying stuff about you like you're not even in the room. It's like, oh well, he won't keep up with that. That'll be too much. Here's some Ritalin to keep him calm, and that's the story of my life. Just being given or offered drugs, and my mum didn't want me being on Ritalin because that just numbs you. And like I was quite aggressive at a young age, like things would just overstimulate me. And it's another thing, like just to touch on, but sounds, taste, smell, touch, like sensations of clothing and stuff like that would drive me mental. Like I couldn't wear jeans, or I couldn't wear school shirts. So like the little pockets like there, I'd have to wear a t-shirt on underneath. Otherwise, like that's a fixable thing though. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's something that I find, if a situation can be fixed and it's not inconveniencing a lot of people, why not do it? You know, and in that situation, clothing like jeans on my legs, just the sensation rubbing against me was horrible. I hated it. So I'd much prefer to wear tracksuits. My mum often jokes and says, "You're not going out like that, are you? You look like a tramp." But I usually go for comfort over appearance. Now I've started dressing a lot better over the years, but that's just something that I really found tough. Sensations, um, food as well. Like I give you a good example of that was spaghetti bolognese. I would have to have the pasta say separate over here, and then like the mince over there, on the plate. Just scratching my neck in case you're wondering. Got itchy on both sides there, which is weird, but yeah, no, it was fixable. And my mum, in fairness to her, did do a lot of things that I didn't even realise just to make my life easier. And God knows I put her and my brother through hell when I was younger. Just temper tantrums called meltdowns, which is something I feel a lot of shame and guilt about because sadly my brother suffered a lot of them. I'd be violent with them quite a bit, which I feel terrible about to this day. Um, it wasn't easy on any of us. My dad didn't deal with it well at all, and that's being generous. He didn't deal with it full stop. He just used to say, "Why are you so aggro? What's wrong with you? Cop on to yourself." There was a lot of name calling, and like we weren't battered kids or anything like that, but sometimes when they get too much, like you get a slap. Or my mum would be at her wits' end and hit you with a wooden spoon. Um, and like, yeah, I know what people talk about now with, oh, you should never do this or that to your kids, but sometimes you're kind of there thinking, yeah, but sometimes I was being so aggressive that you kind of have to um, do something, I guess, something different. Sometimes, like, sometimes I know I deserve the slap, and that's fair enough. Like, I don't hold any grudges over that. But on one occasion, like, I'll never forget it as long as I live, I was 9 years old, and I was hitting my brother, which, as I said, unfortunately wasn't too uncommon. But that's another thing with overstimulation. Like, he was being loud, or if he was banging or something, and it really annoyed me or drove me insane. The reaction wasn't justified, put it that way. And my dad dragged me into the house and punched me in the stomach, threw me on the floor, and just started kicking me in the back. So I remember thinking, oh yeah, but you've been bad. But that's clearly not an appropriate way of dealing with the child. I remember saying to my mum, "Did you not know this was going on?" Well, she said if she knew about it, she would have done something. I never spoke about it, and I guess I thought it was justified. A lot of the stuff I thought it was fair. I thought, oh yeah, well, I'm being trouble again, and that was often the way. Like, people would annoy me, and then I'd get the blame. Like, if I got into a fight, it was never, oh well, who started it? It was just, oh, you're in trouble again, always making problems. Um, and yeah, it's not a nice feeling being singled out all the time. Like, I can't help the way I react. It was out of proportion, but I'm feeling so overwhelmed and people are treating me like shit. And you seem to be siding with them over me. I'm not saying I'm perfect by no means, but yeah, it was challenging growing up in that household. But I've spoken and I'm on much better terms with, like, I'm close with my family, but there were challenges, put it that way. And then, like, with other kids, like playing sport or just going out with people or whatever. As I got older, like, I would be able to play the sport, and I was very good at rugby. I have been for years. I was good at football too. But one thing that I hated was the socialising before the training. I was like, can we just start the training, because I feel so awkward. I don't know how to relate to these people. It's like, I love the sport, and people are there going, oh, autistic people don't like sport. That's what I really got. I really didn't get the sense of, he's going to be into sport. It was more, oh, he'd be into lining up his cars and eat little pile, something like that, or he'll be into maths or science. I love sport, and I could remember every player on every team, um, which is how autistic people excel, and that's a good thing. Like, memory, I can remember so many things, and my brother will joke and call me Rain Man. He'd be like, "Yeah, but you remember that because you're like bloody Rain Man." And jokes are perfectly fine. I don't think we need to be too sensitive about that. I think make a joke of it, take the piss out yourself. Like, what's wrong with that? As long as it's done from a good place, you know. Um, but yeah, primary school was difficult, and that's where my tipping problem, or habit as I called it, was kind of eased itself off after that. And I saw a lot of kids from primary school afterwards, and we were chatting and catching up, who I thought hated me, and I didn't really like them either. But no, it wasn't necessarily that we hated each other. It was that, I guess, they couldn't relate to me, and I couldn't relate to them. Like, people always thought I was very aggressive. I'm a very sensitive person, and I think people with autism in general, or neurodivergent, they are more sensitive, and that's not a bad thing. That shouldn't be considered a bad thing, but it is. Um, we are getting a lot better though, credit where it's due. I think the general population are like, oh, you've autism, I have a nephew, I have a niece, I have a brother or sister, and we're starting a conversation around it, which is brilliant, and I'm delighted to see that. Um, I was just actually Mountain the Climb podcast. He was interviewing a lad called Scott Burns for the Lee Leopards rugby league team. Rugby league's a sport that I've played, and Scott is autistic. So I hope, if he sees this, if he ever does see it, I hope as many people see it as possible. But I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. But I thought it was a brilliant interview, And it was great for someone like me to see someone who's into sport and a sport that I've played who is autistic. Um, because more representation, the better. And that's something actually so, as he said, like the tipping problem, that kind of fizzled out after primary school, and I didn't have many friends. Like as I said, I had two lads that I played football with. Like we'd kick a ball to each other or throw a ball around or whatever. But I was always training, so school training, playing a match at the weekend. I was always on my own, and I've kind of been like that for a while. Secondary school, I kind of wanted to put on a bit of a persona, so I thought, oh, well, who does everyone respect? The big tough guy. So that's what I need to be. And I'll be honest, like I became a bit of a dickhead to a good few people. Um, like I've had people slagging me, like taking the piss out of me a lot. Then I get agitated. But I start doing it to people. So I'm gonna own up to it now that I was no angel by any means. And I was hanging around with lads who were, like shoplifting, and I was too. Um, Thought it was cool. It gave me a rush, you know. And like I had my training to keep me on the straight and narrow, but lads were talking about experiences they had with girls, and I just couldn't relate, And that's kind of like something that I don't really like. There's a lot of lads who use it as a bragging right, like um, watching Blind Boy Boat Club, a lad from the Rubber Bandits. But when he said it, I knew exactly what he was talking about, and it was talking in relation to women. And he said the one thing you'd always say to your mates, or what you'd ask them, is, "What did you get off her?" And to me, that's so misogynistic. Like, I know that's not the masculine thing to say, or, if I said that to lads back in school, they'd say, "Oh, grow up, you," or, "grow up here." Probably accuse me of being a fake feminist or something, but as much as I did take part in like that type of talk, which I have to admit to, but it's not who I am. I'd hate to think of someone in a relationship, you know, being less than me. And you think to yourself, the man's the strong one and the woman has to cater for him. I'm not a big fan of that, and that's something I don't like, and I never will. Like that's not me. I think like a relationship should be equal. A bit of a hopeless romantic in that regard. Sorry, one sec. But yeah, it was just something I couldn't relate to. Like lads just doing literally anything they could to get something off a girl. And when I say get something, I think you can all use your imagination there. Um, but for me, it was kind of like I want to have a connection with somebody. I don't know if that's an autistic thing, but I think we are more genuine. Now I'm touching on a show that I watched called Atypical, where they've got a kid, Sam, who's autistic, and the mom says in the show he doesn't know how to be fake. And I thought that was a brilliant line because that's how I feel a lot of times. Like I have to fake stuff. I have to pretend like I'm. I've really took it upon myself to try and be macho man and something like that. That's something I thought was important. You got to be tough. You can't be sensitive. I am though, unfortunately for me in that setting. Like there are some settings where you just can't be sensitive. You got to tough things out, and I've had to tough out a lot of things. But I was there thinking, this is not for me. It's just so out of my comfort zone. Um, and that's the thing. I've learned to be more genuine because if I'm not, it'll kill me. Like as I navigated through secondary school, I remember a big moment for me was because I'd been training a lot and I wasn't out socialising and meeting girls like other lads were. They had such a head start on me in that regard. I had no game whatsoever. Like I could barely talk to other fellas, never mind young ones. And I remember I was always saying yes. I was a yes man, so I thought to myself, if I'm asked to play for an older team, I've got to say yes. So I did. And I was ended up playing when I was like 12, 13 for the under 15s, and 13, actually, at one stage I played for the under 18s team, like the rugby club I played for. And people were saying, Jesus, that was not a good idea. And they were right. Like, I nearly got killed. Like, I was in bits. I got broken up playing rugby, but people thought I was tough. And I craved that, like that sort of masculine big dick energy, if you want. Um, but I remember playing this particular team. I won't give names of teams or names of people, the places I work, just for, just so that I keep them anonymous. But there was a team we were playing that we hated, and they were bigger and usually stronger, but they were so arrogant, and we had a lot of younger lads playing. I was one of them, and I played really well. And I remember just getting offered a trial because a Leinster scout was over there, out in that particular club. And for those who don't know, like, Leinster rugby is huge. Like, one of the best funded rugby teams in the world. It's my province as well in Ireland, so it was a big deal. Now, it was only something small, like a little trial, but it was an honour to be told about it. But I remember just feeling so hindered because I was told by my club coach, so I was offered it through my club, and I said to my school coach, because I had to ask him for permission. Was 14, 15 at this stage, and playing for the junior cup team, and I remember saying, I have to ask you for, it's called a green card. Can you believe that? Like a Mexican trying to get into America. But I was told by my club coach, you have to ask him for this green card. He has to sign off on it, and then you should be good. You can go for the trial because you're playing for a rugby school technically. But with his permission and his blessing, if you want to call it that, you can go. And I remember thinking, great, that's a stepping stone for me. Of course, he'll say yes. Why wouldn't he? And he said, no, you're not allowed. I'm not signing off on this. And I said, come on, like, you have the authority to sign off. Like, he said, you can get seen playing for the school and offer the trial that way. And I remember just thinking, and I said it to him, I said, yeah, but come on, realistically, we're not doing very well. Nobody's going to be looking at us. But he just said, you can take it up with the principal if you're not happy, who was less than helpful. I brought it up with him, and he just said, talk to your coach. So I've talked to him. But I remember just feeling like, what's the point? Because I had no other goals. I wasn't academically driven. Rugby was all I cared about. Fitness, I did boxing as well, football, but rugby was always the main one. And, like, I was pretty into my fitness up until this point, and I stayed into it. But I remember I was offered smokes before, like, a couple of cigarettes, and I said no, that's a dirty habit, that's nasty. My dad did it, I didn't want to be doing it. Now I'd lost a bit of drive and motivation, in fact a lot, but I just said, yeah, to hell with it. So I started smoking, I started drinking, started getting invited to parties. So I thought, yeah, come on, this is great. Start seeing girls, start getting female attention. And alcohol, for the first time in my life, when I was drunk, I'll never forget the first time being drunk with my dad on a holiday in Turkey when I was 15. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't anxious. And I'm not just talking, like I said to you earlier, like, this anxiety is heart pounding. The world's going to end. I can't breathe. I'm sweating buckets. This is the end of the world type of shit. It's terrible. And, like, being that young and having it, you're kind of thinking to yourself, this is my normal. I know no different. And, like, even now my neck is really tight. My shoulders are extremely tight, and I have to drop them. So what I'll do is I'll just bring them up to my ears and drop them back down. But yeah, like, that's the thing. It's just mad how anxious I've been my whole life and thought it was normal when it most certainly isn't. And alcohol was my best friend, because I'm gonna make a separate video on alcohol for sure, because it deserves the respect. um, but yeah, I relied on it heavily to socialise, and then I start kissing girls and thinking life is great. But I ran to a tough spot then, you know, where I was just so depressed and I was miserable, you know, like dragging myself into school. I could barely get out of bed in the mornings. I was always late to school. Um, I've spoken to a few people about this, and it's something that's been difficult for me. And this video is about autism, so I'm going to keep it on track as much as I can. But something I think autistic people in general struggle with is motivation and apathy. So, what does that even mean? Well, I've often seen how passionate people get about a topic. I'm wishing I could be as excited as they are about something. Don't get me wrong, if I am into something, I'll be able to tell you everything about it. But people used to say how excited they were for a game or I can't wait to play. I remember thinking, yeah, yeah, same. And I was great at faking it. I know it's contradictory because I just said about atypical and you know, autistic people don't know how to fake. I didn't, but I got very good at masking. So that's something that I've heard a lot, and that's something I've done. And you kind of have to if you want to survive in the neurotypical world. You gotta kind of mask because if I'm stimming, and what that is just so I love rugby, so the haka, you know, the New Zealand rugby team do it. So I'd like tap my hands, and if I get very overexcited, I'd just tense up and I'd tap myself and I'd start doing all that sort of thing. I've got a few Polynesian tattoos there as well. And I love their culture, what athletes they are. When I make a rugby video, I'm definitely going to give the Pacific Islanders a mention. Great people that they are. But yeah, so get back on track. Apathy is like, you know, you don't care about anything. You're struggling for motivation. You know, you need to get off your arse and do something. And if you don't have a passion or something you care about, it's very hard. And it's something I've struggled with. So often, what I'll see is I'll see people getting angry or outraged with something, and I'll think, oh, should I be angry or outraged at that? And then I'll kind of go, oh yeah, yeah, that's terrible, but it's not a natural instinct for me. You know what I mean? Like if there's an atrocity going on in the world, I'll kind of take other people's words for it and think, oh yeah, that's terrible, and you know it shouldn't be happening. But there's no immediate reaction with me. It takes a while for it to kind of sink in. Um, it's the best way I can describe it. So, you know, when you see people getting up really early in the morning to go to the gym, which I have done, um, it's tough. Like, it's difficult. I tend to find that it's very hard to keep myself motivated to do something like that. So, sometimes I just get so worn out that I'll have to take a breather. I'll have to just have a lie on in bed. Um, it's hard for me to have the same level of motivation as neurotypical people. I burn out, and autistic burnout is something I can 100% relate to. It's when you've got too much shit going on in your life and you really just need a chill pill. So, again, I'll make a separate video. Like I said, I'll make different topics, but to touch on that, because I think it's very relevant, I said no to a lot when I was younger because it was so overwhelming. So as I got older, I decided I'm going to say yes to everything, which I don't recommend either. But at one point, I was in secondary school and I was doing rugby training for a club and the school. I was boxing, I was playing football, I was cycling to and from school. My mum said, "You are grey, you know, you need to pick one sport and stick with it." And it was the right thing to say because I had my junior cert coming up, which is like your first state exam. Um, Not actually that important, but I'm not recommending that people don't study for it. But it was a good thing to say it. But I really started saying yes to everything. Like, yes, I'll play on that team, even though they're like 5 years older than me. Yes, I'll go up to that train, and I even had a boxing coach say to me, "Oh, you're doing too much," and that's when you know. But also, as I got older, I was going to 2 gym sessions in the morning to get it in before school. So the school were doing training sessions and I was going to them, which was great, you know, like I was in super good condition when I was 17 and 18. Um, but I also took it a bit too far. Another thing I'll discuss in a separate video. I don't want to get into it now, going down a rabbit hole. But I was overtraining, so like 2 sessions in the gym. In school, I was doing rugby training twice a week, playing a game as well on a Wednesday for the school. So like Monday, Thursday, be training for rugby. We'd also have 2 sessions a week for the gym. I'd be going to the gym twice on my own as well, so 4 in total. And then I was running like 12k, so 12 kilometers. Um, More days than not. So when I wasn't training, I'd go on a run, and I thought you could never do too much training, but you absolutely can. And this is when I had my leaving certificate to do, which is your big state exam. It's like the SATs or your O levels in England. And I had a lot of difficulty studying. But in my final year of school, I had a job. I was playing rugby. I was training really hard. I was in the gym because I knew I'm the type of person that needs to stay active. Like if I stopped, people were like, "Oh, you should." Sorry, people were saying you should stop playing rugby. Should take it easy. And I said I won't do any more study if I stop playing rugby. I know that for a fact. So I'm better off using that energy and actually become better at managing time. When you say you want something done, ask a busy person. It's important that you keep yourself occupied, but within reason. You don't want to fail your exams. And I got lucky. Like I studied my arse off in the end, and I worked really hard. I went to after school study, and I got into college. I graduated school. I got Rugby Player of the Year, which I was delighted with. That was an award. I was there joking one of the other lads, our captain, and we were both saying, well, we're never winning an academic award. So at least we got something to show for our efforts in school. But it was just a chapter I was delighted to have done because I had so many conflicts through school. With guys slagging me off, and as I say, I was no angel. I got into a few fights in secondary school as well. A good few, actually. I nearly got expelled from secondary school because there was just so much stuff going on. I'd been in trouble for fighting, I'd been in trouble for stealing, just messing. Because I don't think I realised how much that trial being blocked for me was with Leinster. And I was a bit giddy anyway, I was a bit of a messer, but I basically lost all motivation. I'm not saying I would have been playing for Ireland or anything like that, that's a bit extreme. And it's a bit bitter to go oh well, if that had happened I would have gotten here, I would have been successful. And no, that's not fair to say that either, because truth is we'll never know. But I had to psych myself up for a lot of training sessions, and that's what I'm saying about the apathy and the motivation. It's literally like you're starting from level 1, I want to put it that way. And you say you build on a session each time, it gets easier as you keep doing it. For me, showing up to training, there was an added anxiety that other lads just didn't have to deal with. Sorry, bit of acid reflux. Another thing I hear is common with autism. But yeah, that's one thing that other lads just. I suppose some lads will have it, but one thing that I had an added worry, I was anxious about how I was going to talk to people in the dressing room. Like the actual showing up to the grounds and talking to people in the changing room filled me with so much anxiety. So it was just a never ending battle of being anxious. And for the last year or so, I've taken a break from rugby because it's just been too much. When I say a break, that's from playing. I'm coaching it now, and I'm loving that. That's absolutely brilliant for me. And I'm dealing with young fellas who I can help and train. And I really hope they get something from it. They're all a good bunch of lads. And I'm blessed. I mentioned Polynesians and Pacific Islanders, but Fozzie, my mate, brilliant fella, really lovely lad, and he got me into coaching. And I'm so grateful to him for that. Hopefully have him on the show in the future. I'd love to get him on. So I keep saying show, but we'll just say the channel. But yeah, it's another avenue for me. Coaching is something that I love doing. And I've got a rugby brain. I'm good at tactics and stuff like that. And if I can't train myself, because basically what happened was I was training at a really good level. I was super fit, like I could run 10 kilometers easy enough. I ran 1 kilometer in 3 minutes 45 seconds. It was really good for me. Like I was in really good shape, but I was also deadlifting 220 kilos. I could bench press 115, and I was 18, going on 19 at the time. And I was just putting on so much muscle, but lean muscle, and that's hard for me. Like I'm probably see me now even briefly, but I'm a chubby lad, and I've always been a chubbier fella. So I was training so hard, but when you're like, I know I was saying like it is still hard to motivate yourself, but I developed a mental toughness, which is something that I lost in college because I was just doing too much again. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. I was being pushed one way by my dad, going to a trade. You know, the old school method. Like you should get a trade, get yourself qualified. That's where the money is. That college degree is a waste of time. It's bullshit. My mum said, no, go to college. You'll have a better time. You know, you'll have more chance to socialise. And that was the route I picked because I started an apprenticeship, and I've done a bit of work on construction sites, and they're not for me. They're just not. You know, I'd be miserable. I'd be drinking myself silly, and I'd be gambling or whatever. And I've an addictive personality, and I know that that wouldn't have gone very well. It just would have really fueled every single bit of my negative addiction. Um, or I'd be dead. Like suicide is high in that. I said the word. I was trying not to say it. Would scratch that bit. Um, but I hope it doesn't get cancelled because I really hope this video goes out. But it is. It's high. People ending their own lives is high in that sort of industry, and it's just so hard for you as a young fella. Like when you're growing up, you think, oh, life's great, yeah, but then when you get to secondary school, you're being told you need to study, you need to get a good leaving cert. Why? Oh, so you can go to college. And then when you're actually of the age, it's like, oh, get a trade, it'll be better for you. Then I went to college and decided, you know, I was in the middle of a trade, and I thought I'm getting offered a chance to go to college for free. You know, I got a grant for college, which is great. Or I can sit on a construction site with a load of big fat older lads giving out and screaming at me. Or there's a bunch of good looking girls in college, and that's all I needed. That was all the convincing I needed. Um, and I got very academic there. I really cut back on my training because I had to. The stress was unbelievable. I was working like 20 plus hours a week, and then I had classes, lectures, and labs because I did DNA and forensics, so there was a lot of labs based in that. So I was like 40 hours a week of college, 20 hours of work, and I was training in rugby. So I would go up to training at 6 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays, not get back home until about half nine, 10 o'clock, be exhausted, like crippled. I was also going to the gym on Mondays and Wednesdays, trying to do something on Friday, but I usually gave myself a break on Friday because there were games on Saturday and Sunday. So what I would do was I'd play for the seconds team, usually play the whole game. Not a hope in hell of me doing that now. Um, so I play the whole game for the second team, then sub for the first team. So for anyone who doesn't know, rugby is 80 minutes the whole game, 40-minute halves. So that's 120 minutes of rugby. Um, Maybe a bit less. But then sometimes I was playing for the under 20s as well. So yeah, 200 minutes, maybe a bit less than that, but you know it's not great. It's overdoing it, and I was drinking so much at the weekends. So like I take my training serious through, like I would take it very seriously throughout the week. You know, like people would be off drinking during the week. I'd be like, no, no, no. I mean, for Freshers Week, I certainly did, but found out pretty quick that you'd fall behind in that course. Science courses are very tough. huge respect to anyone who graduates. I did, so I'm so happy to say that. I'll talk about college in another video, like give it its own video. I'm trying not to go off topic here, but yeah, it was very tough. And I guess being in a toxic macho sort of environment in school where everybody's trying to one up each other, I was very aggressive and agitated and anxious. Plus, I'd been working out a good bit, so I got quite big and strong. I was anxious as hell, and there were a lot of good looking girls, and I was there thinking, oh, I'd love to chat to a few of these. We get a date or two, we go out with one or I fancied a girl on my course, but she was actually really nice. But I was just too lacking in my confidence. My confidence was just not high enough to be going over and talking to her. You know, I was too nervous, too insecure, and yeah, that was just something I regret. I regret a lot of times where I thought, oh, a good looking girl, she's probably stuck up. She wasn't. It was me justifying why I didn't have to go over and make an effort. And I think that's important. You got to make the effort yourself. You can't just blame other people. And I've done a lot of work on myself, to try and be more approachable. I guess would be what I'd say. I knew this video would be long, and there's a lot I want to still discuss. So that brings me on to something I really want to get through with autism, that is dating. And boy, is that being fun. So, a lot of women are very sympathetic, for sure. Credit to them. They're definitely the more sympathetic out of male and female. Female are definitely better at understanding. They talk to each other more. A lot of good lads out there, though. Credit where it's due. Like a lot of fellas who I've broken down in front of, which has been quite a few times, but they've been very sympathetic too, which is great. I think our generation, like Gen Z, we get a lot of shit, but we are more empathetic for sure. Um, and hopefully that continues because I think that's a great thing. That's something positive. But what was I going to say now? Dating. it was difficult for me because I had tried so hard to be this ultra macho fella that I'm not. Like I'm not. I'm not this Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger type character. Don't even think they are. That's just the TV that tells us that. But I guess because the biggest lie is that you go to the gym and you put on a lot of muscle and you get big and strong and you're lifting heavy weights, is that it'll get you girls. It won't. What that'll get you, and I've actually craved this myself, as other lads going, man, you're strong, like you're really big, you're really powerful. I was addicted to that. Because that's other lads acknowledging that you're a big, strong fella, like you're tough, and they're kind of impressed with you, so you're there kind of going, oh yeah, you're a beast. And you're thinking to yourself, oh yeah, I'm the man, I'm whopper, I'm macho. um, I actually find the more open and sensitive I've been, the better it has been for dating. But I'm not the type to say after a date, or to not say it after a date because I'm afraid of looking desperate or too needy. Of I had a good time, do you want to do this again? I will say it straight away. I'd be like, I had a great time. I'd love to meet you again. And it's kind of like you don't want to come on too strong, and to me, to hell with it. If you had a good time, let's just do it again. Um, but you can't really do that. It's not really the done thing, And I've had a couple of dates, but it's hard. It's very hard, and I love being chivalrous. I love making the woman feel like I'll be there for her and I be the strong masculine type. But I look after her basically. I want her to feel safe around me, so I'll go the extra mile. Might be a bit desperate, or I might get a bit too anxious before it. I'm quite shy and awkward on a date, but I do make an effort. And I think the right kind of woman will appreciate that, but I do understand it might come on a bit strong. But I like to let them know I've had a good time and I'd love to see them again. That's just something for me that is a big thing, you know. Um, and like when you see a really feminine, attractive girl, you want to treat her like a princess, don't you? That's kind of something that I'm really into. But I want to know it's appreciated. I don't think that I should be expected to act a certain way if she's not going to act a certain way. Hope that makes sense. And hopefully there's someone out there for me. But look, this has been a long video. I've enjoyed making it. I think I'll just end up rambling a lot more if I go on. I'll probably touch on autism in other videos anyway, so there'll be more that I want to discuss. But guys, huge thanks for watching. It's been great getting the second video out, and hopefully there'll be more to come. So cheers, thanks guys.